switch over right away sometimes. But I did have something to say about what you brought up, Ransom. One of the issues I've found since the newest update is that it takes so much more bandwidth. And so one of the things that's helping a lot of my students and in these concerts is to have them close down everything on their computer except for Zoom, including their internet browsers, because they often click on the link and then leave their internet browser. Well, the browser's, checking for updates and checking their email and all this stuff. And because the new Zoom is taking that much more bandwidth, we're seeing delays and cutouts because of
Oh,
that.
I'm
And it
glad you said that because
Me
it's the one
too.
thing I hadn't thought of. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
makes a big difference.
Okay.
There was a question from one of the attendees asking if it's possible to combine CleanFeed with Zoom.
I do
Uh,
that. That's how I teach.
that's how you teach. Okay, so you're both. So the visual is on Zoom, and then you're playing and listening through CleanFeed.
correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
you basically
Okay.
you turn off the audio on Zoom and let cleanfeed do your audio.
Oh wow. Okay, fantastic. So then you really are getting best of both worlds, hopefully. And you could use. So if you're doing that, do you find that there's another platform besides Zoom that has even better video quality? So you could maybe because you mentioned about CleanFeed having the best kind of sound or the best sound
Yeah,
quality. I wonder if there's a
that,
better video quality.
that's a good question. I haven't checked. I mean, I did try. What is that? Is it a Microsoft one or no? Google something or other. Google.
Mm.
Google Meets.
Yes, Google Meets, and it didn't seem to be any different than Zoom. It didn't seem to be any better. But it could be. You're right. There could be some much better video platform that's not worried about the audio.
Mhm.
Right. I mean,
And
CleanFeed is available on Google Chrome. I mean, that's
right,
where you get it.
right.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
great, great.
But he's asking about video. Is there could we use could we use could we use CleanFeed with a much better video program? And I don't know. They must be out there. I don't know.
Yeah,
But that's a good idea. Maybe
do
with
some
less
research.
latency.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Jeff, I saw
Um,
that someone asked about playing duets, and I have a question. I want to ask a question and give an answer to that because I play a lot. I play more duets now than I did even in live because my students, especially like my adults, are missing that um, connection. And it's because we're not on any certain syllabus that we have to follow or anything. We can do what they need and want. And so we're playing a lot of chamber music. And I found a few different ways to do that I really would like to share if it's helpful for
Please.
people. One of them is just to use an app. So we use a cappella a lot, where it's just an app. I can record my part, send it to them. They record their part. It's fun. It's easy. It's decent sound quality, and it's fun. It's a good listening opportunity. The other ways I do it is I run a couple of flute choirs that I have everybody on Zoom at the same time. I've recorded all the parts, so I play them on a speaker. They listen to the parts. They're all muted, so they play along, so they hear all the parts with me. So hopefully the intonation's good, and they play along with their part. And then we stop, and I unmute one at a time to work on little sections. That's going over really well because everyone feels we're together. Look, we see each other, we can communicate, we can have a good time. Yet they're still getting to play their own parts and hear the others. And then the other thing I do sometimes when nothing else works is to literally, and that's where my question comes in. I wonder if clean feed would work for this. We shut off the sound on Zoom and call each other on the phone, and we play the duet. So we have audio through the phone and visual through Zoom because there's no lag on the phone.
Interesting. That's a good idea.
Oh, that's cool, Teresa.
That's
Invention.
very good. Yeah. Have any of you used Jamkazam?
Not yet.
I have a student on the West Coast who's a jazz player, and he does jam sessions every weekend on this thing called Jamkazam, which allows you, if you're in the same zip code, basically, it allows you to play together in real time. Um, it's very finicky, and there's another one called Jamulus. That's even you have to know a lot of technical stuff. I couldn't use it, but we found it. But then I tried to play duets with this student, and I was here and he's in California, and there was just too much latency. You couldn't do it. But the idea of being, within, say, 20 miles of each other and being able to play should work in a school setting, it would seem to me. But it's finicky, and we kind of gave up on it because we were busy with other stuff. Have either of you used it?
No.
I've researched it a little bit for our concert settings, but there was still latency enough that it wouldn't work for what we were thinking of. But I didn't go much further than that.
Yeah, and but I have a feeling there's something just on the horizon because people are working so hard.
Yeah.
We heard about something today called 4D piano. Now, this is a former Yale pianist named Lucas Wong, whom I remember, has this company, and it's basically for accompanying people, but it can happen in real time. So you can have somebody. It has to be an electronic piano, because it's working with MIDI somehow. And I don't really know a whole lot about it, but Frank Morelli came on this afternoon and said, "Oh, it'll allow a quartet to play together." But I went on their website and I couldn't see any evidence of what he was talking about. So I don't know, but I have a feeling somebody's going to come up with a way to do this soon.
Yeah.
And make $1 million.
Yeah. Speaking of latency issues, and just you teaching and being in New Haven, and student being in California, and I'm sure everybody does that. Are there other platforms that you've found? Potentially, this is one of the questions from one of the attendees, from Deirdre, asking if you've found other platforms that work when you're maybe in rural areas, or you're working with off of satellites when you don't have your Ethernet connection or really solid Wi-Fi, or you just kind of.
Good question. I do. I have one chamber group that I coach where the flute players in rural France and the clarinet players in Hong Kong. So there's like 1 hour a day that we're all awake, And the problem is the flute player he's in, he's kind of out in the country, is using a DSL connection. I mean, when was the last time you heard about that?
Right.
And it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, it's like, so he says they promised that fiber optic is coming to his neighborhood, but they won't say when. We're hoping it'll be by next semester. But no, I didn't even consider there might be something that would work in a satellite situation that doesn't, that's better. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the duets, that was a question from one of the attendees also that Tereasa spoke about. Something that was always really important to me when I was in school was the studio element. Just being with my classmates and being able to have all of us there and playing whatever it might be that we were assigned to all work on. How have you addressed that? How have you replaced the studio element, or if you have at all?
The first 5 weeks, everyone was so weirded out that there wasn't even any playing. It was a time when everybody would come together. My students were scattered all over the country, and we basically just talked. And I think that helped everybody. It was normalcy. At the very end of the semester, I asked our wonderful music director, Larry Ratcliffe, to come and talk about score study and other things that the students were interested in. But we tried several things this fall. We tried having some people play over Zoom live, and it did not really work very well. And it was a mixed group. There was a student in the East Bay out in California. There was somebody in Hartford, Connecticut. There was somebody living down the street from me, but not wanting to go into campus. Some people on campus in person. So we have hybrid at Rice. And so we weren't sure. Then we thought, okay, we'll have some recordings, because a student of mine had gone to Music Academy of the West in the summer, and for their studio classes, they played recordings. But now what we are doing, which I think works the best, is people record and then they put the recording on a private YouTube channel. And that has been wonderful. And then we just read each other, then we mute ourselves, we listen, and then we all talk, and everybody can comment on their colleagues' performances. I can say things, and it's been very successful. And I'm glad that we found this now, because if we are continuing next semester, and we will be, I'm sure, to some extent, having distanced studio classes, then this will work very well.
That's brilliant.
That's
Fantastic.
really nice. We did. I think we did some of that, but we're not having too much trouble with the live Zoom things. I mean, was it today or yesterday? Two people played Bach sonatas, and we actually had no issues. I mean, I was kind of surprised that we could go through the B minor sonata all the way through and not have, you know, a slow down, speed up. You know, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it worked well enough that we haven't done the recording thing in a while. But we are doing we're doing a class project of the Reisha quartet from 4 people, and they're using BandLab. I don't know if you guys have used BandLab.
No.
It's another free program that allows you to. It acts as a repository of all the tracks that you've laid down. So a little bit like a cappella, but I think more, you can use more tracks and you have more control and you can actually edit. BandLab, yeah, it's good. And, you know, it's not perfect, but it's really pretty good. So we have a Reisha quartet that's being built at the moment. and a Kula duet. I only have 6 in my class, so we have a Kula duet and a Reisha quartet, and everybody's pretty happy about it. I mean, we at Yale we made a big push in the wind and brass department because Yale University has been so careful about the virus that they're not allowing any wind players to play in a room with anybody else. And the result is we've only had 1 case since school began, which is amazing.
Wow.
But it's very frustrating for the wind and brass players. And so we're trying to give them a kind of as much of a robust experience as we can. And so I've got a wind quintet working on the Peter and the Wolf arrangement. And they're really, I mean, they've decided to do it with narrator and with animation. So
Great.
it's a huge project. I mean, so I'm having them, and I mean, I'm sure you guys have done the same thing, but I'm having them make a kind of recording plan that's very clear to everybody using a spreadsheet. So like what we do in this section that has a retard in the last bar and that kind of thing, so we can all eventually be together. Having said all that, one of my groups is working on the Hindemith Quintet, and the slow movement is one of those pieces that is kind of flexible somehow. You know, it's kind of that kind of Brahms thing where the rhythm is, you know, it gets fatter at times, and we tried to use a click track and just couldn't make it work. It just always felt really, really restrictive. So their new assignment for this, which I'll hear tomorrow, is to do that movement with no click at all. So my student, the flute player, is going to start because she starts the movement, and we're going to see how it goes. I mean, there's going to be certainly some editing that has to be done, kind of shoving things around so that they line up. But I have a feeling it's going to make I mean, for sure it'll be more fun to play, but I feel like the final product will be good. So we've instead of sending recordings, the whole school is kind of concentrating on doing these layered recordings. The nice thing is that the kids are learning how to play with a click, which is not easy, and they're learning how to edit and how to mix and all these things that are going to be useful to them in the future. And having said all that, it doesn't hold a candle to playing with even one other person.
Oh, that's true. And at Rice, we have been having normal wind chamber music with people